Hello and welcome back. I'm going to be showing you how to replace the alternator. This is a 2012 XC60, a 3.2 liter engine. First step, we have to disconnect the battery, and then we have to remove the intake to replace the alternator. Now if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to leave a link in the description for my other video on how to remove the intake on this vehicle. Now once you get the intake removed, that's what it's going to look like. Now, first thing we got to do is disconnect the cables off the alternator. There's one main cable runs to the battery, and there is the signal cable for the control module. It's just a one wire and one connector. Now the best thing to do to disconnect that connector, I find that the easiest thing is to get a little small screwdriver and to put it right there. See if I can focus on that. And push down. See the clip moving? As soon as you push down, it clicks. And once you hear that click, then you're disconnected, and all you got to do is just pull it back. Comes off that easy. This nut is a 13 millimeter. Just gonna get a 13 millimeter socket. And 3/8 ratchet. You gotta remove this nut. And the reason we disconnect the battery, because this has got 12 volts. If you touch the ground anywhere, or if this cable touches the ground, then you'll have a short. Stuff gets hot really quick, so be careful. Make sure to disconnect the battery. Remove this nut, and then this cable comes right off. Second thing we got to do is we got to remove these 4 bolts. There's 2 up here and there's 2 on the bottom. Once we remove these 2 bolts, or these 4 bolts, there's 2 dowel pins that goes into the block. You might have to wiggle the alternator a little bit to get it off, and then it just comes right off. Okay, so I removed the top 2 bolts, bottom 2 bolts. I'm ready to remove the alternator. And what's holding it now in place is the 2 dowel pins that goes into the block. We just gotta work it back and forth until we get them completely out. And here it goes. And this is it. I have never seen one of these go bad. I have worked on cars with 250, 300,000 miles. I've never seen one of these go bad. But if you want to replace it, you can while it's in there. Another common issue I have seen on these engines, for some reason this bolt would back out a little bit, and this pulley would start free spin, or not spin. The shaft would be spinning, but the pulley won't be spinning, and for that the alternator won't be spinning, and your battery would die and you would be stranded. People would think it's the alternator, but it's not. A good way to check it before you remove everything, I get a pry bar, go through the intake and push one way or another on this rubber seal. This will be sitting right here, and you can push this way or that way and try to move it. If this would spin with the engine off, of course, that's mean you have one of these bolts that backed out. And in order to fix it, you still got to remove the alternator, and you have to replace the pulley and the bolt and retorque it. There is a special tool to hold this pulley in place. If you'd like any more information on that, leave a comment and I will get back to you. But in this case, this is tight, so we don't have a problem with this. Our problem is in the alternator. Now, one thing, I'm not sure about aftermarket parts, but factory alternators from Volvo, they don't come with this pulley. So this pulley has to be removed from the old alternator onto the new one. And to do so, you have to remove this cover. And to remove this cover, you have to put a hole in it. So this cover has to be replaced when you replace your alternator, if you get an alternator from Volvo. There's a special tool will be needed to hold this pulley in place. And I believe I have one here. There's this tool right here. Come on, focus. There we go. It's just splines that slides onto the pulley and it locks it in place. There's a 15 mil wrench that goes on here to hold it in place. So I'm going to skewer my alternator in the vise. Okay, I got the alternator in the vise. This is the cover. I'm going to put a hole right in the middle of it. And here it goes. This tool goes right in here. And there's another tool going to go in there. Triple Torx to remove this pulley. I'm going to have to go locate that tool. Now we'll be back. So this is the tool, triple square M10. This is the part number 9512849. If you call the dealer, give them that number, they should be able to give you that tool. I'm pretty sure Snap-on carries this. Not sure if Harbor Freight or any other place would carry this, but this is basically going to go in the center. 10 millimeter. Put the wrench in first. I'll set the phone down and try to break this loose. Okay, we got the pulley off. The only other thing we have to reuse is these dowel pins. These has to be transferred to the new alternator. Just pair of pliers and pull them out. We're all set with this one. This one's going to go back for exchange. I'm going to take this one off the vise, put the new one on the vise, and put that pulley back on. Okay, this is the new alternator, and I'm about to tap these dowel pins back in, make sure they go back in the same place you got them out with the old alternator. Make sure not to put them on the opposite side. Okay, and when you tap them in all the way flush to the alternator. Don't leave anything protruding. Just like that, nothing protruding. Make sure to tap them flush, flat with the alternator. Otherwise you're going to have a problem getting the alternator back on the car. And I will show you the trick to get these back into the block once we get the alternator mounted. So now, turn this back this way. I'm going to put this pulley back on here. I'm going to torque this. I'm going to install the new cover on the pulley, and I will be back. Okay, this is the new alternator. I got the new cover on. Wipe that off. Got the new cover on, and we have the dowel pins flush. Now the secret to this, something I made, is this, just a long bolt. I did grind it down so it can fit through these holes, right? It's like a punch, pretty much. Fits through the hole. It is small enough to go through the hole, but it's not small enough to go through the dowel pin. See that right there? So this way you can put the alternator back on. Like so. And then what I do is I line up the two top bolts and I slide the bolts in and I thread them back by hand, but not all the way tight, just so it can hold the alternator from falling down. Because if it does, if you let it go, it's gonna fall down. See that? So you put the bolts to hold it upright. Don't tighten them all the way. So I got these two in by hand. As you can see, they're not all the way tight, so you have a little bit of room to play around. And then you take this tool that I made, and by the way, if you can't make one or if you don't have anything to fit, let me know. I will send you this one and I will make myself another one. Okay, and that just slides in the hole. And then I'm going to try to set my phone where you can see while I'm doing this. Take my hammer, hold it sideways, and I move the alternator up and down as I'm tapping to find the center of the hole on the block. And then you can feel it once it starts to go in. Right there. And then you can feel it once it bottoms out. And then you slide the bolt. Slide it in the second hole, and the same thing. Till it bottoms out. Once these two bottom out, then you're done. Put the two bolts on the bottom. Then you tighten the 2 bolts on the bottom, you tighten the 2 bolts on top. Then you put this back in here, and this connector just slides on and it clips on. Once you have this connector in, make sure to get this nut tight. Do not forget to tighten this nut. It will cause you all kind of problems. And that's it. Once you get the 4 bolts tight and the 12-volt wire, the battery cable tight on the alternator, you all are all set. At that point, the only thing is left is to reinstall the intake back on, and you're good to go. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. If you guys find this video helpful in any way, please leave a thumbs up. If you got any questions or anything you want to know about a Volvo, leave a comment. I will get back to you as soon as I can.